Chapter 1, The Weight of 72. The bridge of the ASF Resolute hummed with a frequency tighter than a wound spring. Lieutenant Commander Vance stood at the central holotank, the ghostly light of a stellar cartographic projection painting deep shadows across his face. The data chip from the dying Dominion commander sat in the reader, its contents burned into his mind. 72 hours. He traced a line with his finger across the void. 3 civilian convoys. 3 unescorted, undergunned clusters of colony ships, ore haulers, and family transports. They were spread across 100 light-years of contested space, each one a soft, slow-moving target. "They're not just probing," Vance said, his voice flat, carrying the cold certainty of a surgeon reading a terminal scan. "This isn't a raid. The Dominion doesn't commit capital ships to a raid. They're cutting the legs out from under us before we can stand." Commander Rourke stood at the tactical station, his knuckles white against the polished metal rail. The explosion of the Leviathan still echoed in his bones. He'd watched a kilometer-long warship turn into a funeral pyre, and now he was staring at a map of their own impending cremation. 3 convoys, Rourke said, his throat dry. "We can't be at 3 places at once." "No," Vance agreed. He zoomed the projection. "But we can be at one. The closest is Convoy Kestrel, 12 ships, mostly civilian. They're drifting through the Halo Nebula, thinking they're hidden by the radiation scatter. The Dominion will find them in 40 hours. And the other 2, Vance didn't flinch. "We warn them. We burn the comms cold and hope the 7th Fleet's listening posts catch the burst before the Dominion jammers lock on. Then we run like hell for the rendezvous." The bridge crew exchanged glances. The rendezvous. A single point in deep space where the scattered remnants of the 7th Fleet were supposed to assemble, if they made it in time, if the Dominion didn't pick them off one by one. If the convoys survived long enough to buy them the minutes they needed. Too many ifs. "Helm," Vance said, turning to the navigation pit. "Time to Kestrel's last known position at maximum sustainable burn." Lieutenant Sato's fingers danced across her console. 28 hours, sir. We'll be riding the reactor's red line the whole way. Any faster and we start shedding hull plates." "Do it." Rourke stepped closer, lowering his voice. "Vance, the Resolute is a destroyer. We're fast, but we're not built for a sustained sprint. If we burn the engines that hard, we'll be limping into any fight we find." Vance met his gaze. The weariness in his own eyes was mirrored in Rourke's. "They've been running on stims and adrenaline for 3 days. The Leviathan was barely cold debris." "I know," Vance said quietly, "but those convoys don't have engines, they don't have guns, they have families and food stores and the last seeds of half a dozen colonies. If we don't get there, they die. If we don't make the rendezvous, we all die, so I'll take a limping ship over a dead one." Rourke held his stare for a long moment, then nodded. He turned to the crew. "You heard the commander. Set condition 1 throughout the ship. Non-essential systems go to standby. Every joule of power goes to the drives and the shields. We're going to beat the Dominion to Kestrel, and we're going to do it on fumes if we have to." The bridge snapped into motion. Alarms chirped, consoles beeped with acknowledgments. The low thrum of the fusion reactor deepened as the Resolute began to push harder, the deck plates vibrating beneath their boots. Vance leaned over the holotank, studying the void between them and the nebula. There were Dominion patrols out there, hunter-killer groups. Corvettes and frigates that would love to catch a lone destroyer running hot and alone. They'd have to thread the needle through sensor shadows and gravity wells, praying that luck and a cold reactor core would keep them invisible. "Sato," he said without looking up, "plot a course through the Halo's debris field. The radiation will mask our heat signature for a while, but it'll play hell with our sensors. I want passive scanning only, no active pings." "Aye, sir, we'll be flying half blind. I'd rather be blind and alive than spotted and dead." The ship lurched as the main drives engaged at full burn. The stars outside the viewport stretched into streaks of white light. Vance felt the familiar pressure in his chest, the weight of acceleration pushing him into his boots. 72 hours, it might as well be an eternity. He looked at the silent comms panel. Somewhere out there, a Dominion battle group was already moving. Commanders who saw humans as soft, slow, and weak. They expected panic. They expected chaos. They were about to get something else entirely. "Rourke," Vance said, his voice cutting through the hum, "get me a firing solution on the most likely intercept vectors. If they're hunting us, I want to know where they'll be before they know they're there." Rourke's lips curled into something that wasn't quite a smile. "You're planning to hit first." "I'm planning to survive." Vance straightened, his eyes fixed on the distant glow of the Halo Nebula. "If the Dominion wants a war, we'll give them one. But we'll do it on our terms at our time, and we'll make sure they remember what happens when you corner a predator." The bridge fell silent, the only sound the steady thrum of engines and the quiet beep of instruments. The Resolute raced into the dark, carrying the weight of 3 convoys, a fleet, and a species that refused to die quietly. Rourke's fingers flew across his console, passive sensor feeds, scrolling so fast they blurred into streaks of green and amber. 3 Dominion destroyers intercept vector 17.4 degrees off our stern. They're running at 0.82C, no signature masking, no active sensor discipline. ETA to weapons range, 11 hours, 22 minutes. The bridge went quiet for half a second before Jessa, the tactical officer, barked a sharp, humorless laugh. They're not even trying to hide. Those eggheads think we're still running survey-class corvettes with 20th century radar. Vance leaned over Rourke's shoulder, eyes fixed on the three bright blips trailing them. Each was a 1.2-kilometer-long destroyer built for anti-freighter strikes, their spinal railguns capable of punching through Resolute's forward armor in 3 shots. Behind them, a faint, almost invisible signature blipped on the long-range passive scan, a Dominion carrier group, 0.21 light-years back, moving at 0.78C. ETA to the system, 21 hours, 47 minutes. They're a vanguard, Vance said, jaw tight. They're gonna try to disable our FTL drive before the main fleet jumps in. No risk, no glory for their commanders, just mop-up duty. Jessa pulled up the point defense and railgun status, numbers scrolling crisp across her screen. Forward spinal railguns at 93% charge, 120 rounds per barrel. Point defense quad mounts at 1100 rounds per barrel, 98% operational. Hull integrity 100%, no damage from the micrometeor shower we hit an hour ago. Good, Vance turned to the comms officer. Get me a secure channel to the Iron Resolve and Steadfast. Tell their captains I'm diverting the convoy to the uncharted jump point 0.12 light-years off Port Bow, the one the Dominion doesn't have on their charts. Aye, sir. The comms officer relayed the orders, and a moment later the ensign at the navigation station, her knuckles white around the control yoke, adjusted the course by 0.3 degrees to match the uncharted jump point signature. Vance caught her eye, gave a small, sharp nod. She exhaled, shoulders loosening just a fraction. 2 stiff acknowledgments came through the comms a second later. Captain Reyes of the Iron Resolve didn't waste words. We'll get every civilian transport through. No losses, Vance nodded, keying the all-hands channel. All hands, this is the captain. We're drawing the Dominion Vanguard into the Halo Nebula's ion cloud. Their active sensors will be useless inside 5,000 clicks. We'll take them out before their main fleet can follow. The Dominion hail blared over the comms, harsh, guttural, translated automatically by the ship's AI. Human vessel Resolute, surrender immediately or be destroyed. Your fragile hull cannot withstand our fire. Hand over your cargo and crew, and we will spare your lives. Vance muted the hail, spat on the deck. Arrogant bastards, they already think they've won. Rourke's console pinged. They're charging spinal railguns. First salvo ETA, 9 minutes. They're targeting our port FTL nacelle. Hard to port, 15 degrees. Point defense crews, stand by for incoming. Vance braced himself against the command console as the ship rolled, the artificial gravity holding steady. The first 2 railgun rounds streaked past the viewport, searing white, missing the nacelle by 180 meters. One clipped the starboard weapons array, sending a shower of sparks and twisted metal across the bridge. The hull breach alarm blared for 3 seconds before the automated seals slammed shut. Hull breach compartment 7 sealed. Casualties, 2 minor, treated by medics, Jessa called out, no trace of panic in her voice. Rourke's eyes flicked to the navigation display. Ion cloud boundary in 30 seconds. Their active sensors are going dark. Vance's lips twitched into a sharp, cold smile. Forward railguns charged to 100%, fire at will. Let's show these pricks what happens when you corner a human predator. The first Dominion destroyer glowed bright on Resolute's passive sensors, its masked signature finally visible through the ion haze. The Resolute's forward railgun hummed, a single 2-ton tungsten round, slamming downrange at 0.2C. The 2-ton tungsten slug punched through the Dominion destroyer's forward shield emitter before its crew could realign defensive grids, kinetic shear turning the 12-meter armored bow plate into confetti. It carved a path through the destroyer's forward missile magazine, detonating a stored salvo of anti-ship rounds mid-rack, before punching out the aft hull and venting half the crew into vacuum. The destroyer listed 15 degrees to port, its port thrusters sparking as power conduits shredded, bridge comms squawking static for 3 full seconds before cutting out entirely. Target 1 reactor cascade in T-90 seconds, Rourke called, fingers flying across his console as passive sensor feeds painted the burning destroyer's signature bleeding radiation into the ion cloud. 2 remaining bogies are adjusting formation, active sensor sweeps lighting up the haze perimeter. A salvo of 8-inch railgun rounds from the second Dominion destroyer streaked through the ion cloud, ionized gas particles flaring bright orange as the rounds passed. 2 slammed into the Resolute's starboard flank, 30 meters forward of the bridge, the impact throwing everyone off their feet for half a second before artificial gravity reasserted itself. The hull breach alarm blared, followed by Jess's flat report, Compartment 12 breached, 2 casualties, medics en route. Starboard comms array offline, switching to backup long-range band. Vance braced himself against the command console, eyes fixed on the tactical display. Cut main engines, drift into the densest part of the haze. Kill all non-essential power emissions. Point defense crews, hold fire until rounds are within 500 meters. Don't tip our position with muzzle flash. The Resolute's engines went silent, the ship coasting deeper into the iron cloud as passive sensors tracked the 2 remaining destroyers fumbling in the haze, their active sensor pings giving away their exact positions. Rourke locked onto the second destroyer's sensor array spire, and the Resolute's forward railgun hummed again, a single round slamming downrange. It took the spire clean off, the destroyer's active sensor feed cutting out instantly as it fired a wild, unguided salvo of point defense rounds into empty space. Third destroyer broke formation, thrusters flaring as it tried to retreat toward the edge of the iron cloud. Jamming its comms burst, Jessa said, tapping her console. It's trying to ping the Dominion cruiser patrolling the outer system. Transmission got 12% out before I killed it. Rourke's face went tight. That cruiser's 20 light minutes out. If it got a partial signal, ETA to intercept is 47 minutes. No way we outrun it if it drops out of FTL at the jump point. Vance's jaw tightened. Rourke, target destroyer 1's reactor core. Precision shot, no overpen. Jessa scanned their data cores for cargo manifests, mission logs, anything that explains why they were harassing civilian freighters in the system. We're not leaving here empty-handed. The second railgun shot slammed into the first destroyer's reactor housing, and the ship erupted in a silent bloom of superheated gas as the core went critical, the blast washing out the Resolute sensors for 3 full seconds. The second destroyer, blind and without command, drifted helplessly as the Resolute's point defense crews picked off its remaining thrusters, leaving it dead in the water. Cargo manifest pulled, Jessa said, uploading the file to the main display. It wasn't standard Dominion supply crates. It was labeled Experimental FTL Drive Components, stamped with a United Earth Colonial Authority serial number. The same UECA convoy that had gone missing 3 months prior, carrying prototype fold space drive parts to the Titan colony. Vance stared at the file, the cold smile gone. The Dominion wasn't just raiding freighters. They were hunting for tech that could let humanity slip their grasp. He looked up at the viewport where the distant glint of an FTL signature bloomed at the edge of the system. All hands, brace for maneuvering, he ordered, hands tightening on the console. We've got 44 minutes to grab every scrap of intel off those destroyers, load the UCA cargo, and get the hell out of Dodge before that cruiser gets here. Let's move. We need to write Chapter 4 of 12 for Episode 25. The story context ends with Vance ordering to grab intel and cargo before a cruiser arrives. We need to continue from there, macro to micro scale, no cliches, crisp military dialogue, high stakes, 800-100 0 words. Output only story text. I'll write the chapter. After the order, the crew works frantically, scanning the disabled destroyer, gathering intel, loading cargo, dealing with internal threats maybe, and the cruiser arrives. End with a cliffhanger or a decision. Use precise technical details, tense atmosphere, realistic dialogue. Chapter 4, the Resolute's boarding pods punched through the second destroyer's hull in 3 places, magnetic clamps locking onto the compromised armor. Chief Petty Officer Marquez led the first team through the breach, his squad's magboots thudding against the deck as the alien atmosphere hissed out into the void. The Dominion ship's internal gravity flickered, then stabilized, a partial emergency field. Clear left, Marquez signaled, carbine tracking the corridor. The air stank of burnt insulation and something organic, metallic. The crew had either abandoned ship or been crushed by the shockwave. They found the first body near the reactor control room. A Dominion officer, its carapace cracked, blue fluid pooling under the shattered visor. Data cores are in the navigation bay, Deck 3. Lieutenant Harper's voice came through the TACnet. I'm seeing a secondary encryption layer, military grade, not civilian. They were hiding something. Vance monitored from the bridge, eyes fixed on the timer. 39 minutes left. The FTL signature at the edge of the system was growing sharper, resolving into a cruiser-class mass. Dominion doctrine, cruiser answers distress call, deploys fighters, then broadcasts surrender demands. They wouldn't negotiate. Jessa, can you crack that encryption from here? He asked, not without the physical core. The safeties are designed to melt the data if we try remote decryption. I need a direct tap, she replied, already pulling up schematics. The navigation bay has a sealed conduit. I can route a bypass if someone gets me to the junction box. Done. Marquez, escort Jessa to the nav bay, prioritize the core extraction. Everything else is secondary. Marquez acknowledged, and the team moved. They encountered no resistance. The destroyer was a ghost ship, its systems running on emergency power. But the silence was wrong. Dominion ships always had a low-frequency hum from their reactors. This one was too quiet. Jessa knelt at the junction box, peeling back the panel with a magnetic cutter. The wiring was alien, but she'd studied Dominion architecture for 2 years. She found the primary data line spliced in her tap and hit the decryption sequence. The core's safeties blinked, then held. "It's got a dead man's switch," she muttered. "If I don't input the correct sequence in 30 seconds, it melts. I need the ship's command codes." "We don't have them," Vance said. "Can you brute force?" "Not in 30 seconds, but the command codes are stored in the bridge, the captain's console. If we pull the memory crystal, we can authenticate." Marquez was already moving. 2 minutes to the bridge, cover me." The bridge was intact, but the captain's body was frozen in place, hands still gripping the command chair. Marquez ignored it, ripped the console's access panel, and yanked the crystal. He tossed it to Jessa, who caught it and slotted it into her decoder. The dead man's switch reset. 15 seconds left. She typed the code from the crystal. The core unlocked. "Got it. Downloading now," she said, the data transferring at high speed. She glanced at the manifest. "Vance, you need to see this. The prototype parts aren't just FTL drives, they're fold space equations, complete ones." The Dominion was reverse engineering them from the UECA convoy. Vance's jaw tightened. Fold space drives were humanity's only advantage, instantaneous travel across light years, no wake, no signature. If the Dominion cracked that, Earth's colonies would be trapped. "All teams, finish extraction and return to the Resolute. We're leaving in 20 minutes. The boarding pods retracted, cargo containers secured in the Resolute's hold. The cruiser was now visible to the naked eye, a dark wedge against the distant star, its weapons ports glowing with charge. "Helm, set course for the Uit cloud. We'll use the debris field for cover," Vance ordered. "Jessa, can you plot a fold space jump from here?" "Not without a stable reference point. The system's gravity well is too chaotic. We'll need to clear the outer asteroid belt first. Then we make a run for it, all power to engines, point defense on standby." The Resolute's reactors screamed as they pushed to 120% output. The cruiser's FTL drive collapsed, and it emerged in real space, already launching a wave of fighters. The chase began. The Resolute's engines flared white-hot as the cruiser lurched forward, a predator cornered in deep space. Vance gripped the command rail, eyes locked on the tactical display. The Dominion cruiser was already spitting fighters, angular, black, and fast. They moved in formation, a swarm of hornets closing on a wounded bear. "Point defense, free fire, target their lead elements," Vance said. His voice was flat calm. The crew responded without hesitation. The Resolute's flak cannons roared. Tungsten pellets and proximity-fused shells filled the void, shredding the first wave. 3 fighters exploded in silent fireballs, their debris scattering across the Resolute's hull. But more came. The Dominion cruiser launched a second wave, then a third. "They're hurting us," Jessa said from the comms station. Her fingers danced across the console, decoding the last of the stolen data. "The cruiser is angling to cut us off from the Uit cloud. If we stay on this vector, we'll hit a kill box inside 10 minutes. Vance didn't blink. "Helm, adjust course. 10 degrees port, increase throttle to 130%. We're going to thread the needle between their third and fourth formation." "Sir, that's a debris field. Unmap," the helm officer said. "Then we'll map it in real time. Execute." The Resolute banked hard. The inertial dampeners strained, groaning under the stress. Vance felt the pull in his gut, a familiar pressure that meant the ship was pushing its limits. The debris field loomed ahead, a graveyard of shattered asteroids and Dominion wreckage from an earlier skirmish. It was chaos, but chaos could be a weapon. "Point defense, switch to anti-ship mode. Target the larger debris, clear a path," Vance ordered. The cannons adjusted, their shells now aimed at the chunks of rock that could gut the Resolute at this speed. Explosions rippled ahead, clearing a corridor through the debris. The Dominion fighters followed, but they were smaller, less armored. They couldn't take the same hits. 2 of them collided with a spinning asteroid fragment, their hulls crumpling instantly. "They're breaking off," Jessa said. "The cruiser is launching a pursuit drone. It's bigger, slower, but it's got a sensor array. It's tracking our drive signature." Vance turned to the tactical officer. "Can we jam it?" "Not with our current loadout. We'd need a focused M-pulse, but that would shut down our own systems for 30 seconds. "Then we don't jam it, we bait it." Vance pulled up a schematic of the debris field. "There's a gas giant on the far side of this field. We'll swing around it, use its gravity to slingshot toward the Uit cloud. The drone will follow, but it'll be too close to the planet's magnetosphere to transmit." "It'll still record our trajectory," Jessa said. "By the time they decode that, we'll be in fold space. Helm, execute the slingshot. All hands, brace for high-G maneuver." The Resolute's engines cut to idle as the ship entered the gas giant's gravity well. The planet was a swirling mass of ammonia and hydrogen, its storms visible even from orbit. The cruiser's hull groaned as the gravity field pulled them in, accelerating them to a velocity that would have torn a lesser ship apart. Vance held the rail, his knuckles white. The tactical display showed the drone still following, its signal flickering as it entered the magnetosphere. Then it went dark. "Drone lost," the tactical officer said. "We're clear." "Not yet," Vance said. Helm on my mark, full burn. We need to break orbit and make for the Uit cloud in under 4 minutes. The Resolute emerged from the gas giant's shadow, its engines flaring as they pushed against the planet's gravity. The ship shuddered, its frame protesting the strain, but it held. The Uit cloud appeared on the long-range sensors, a diffuse halo of ice and rock marking the system's edge. Beyond it, fold space. We're not going to make it, Jessa said. The cruiser is already requiring. They'll have a firing solution in 2 minutes. Vance turned to the weapons officer. Do we have any nuclear warheads left? 3, all tactical, ship to ship. Launch them. Set them to detonate in sequence, 1 kilometer apart. Create a debris curtain between us and the cruiser. The missiles streaked away, their drives burning bright. They detonated in a staggered line, the nuclear fireballs expanding into a wall of plasma and radiation. The Dominion cruiser's sensors would be blinded for at least 30 seconds. That's our window, Vance said. Helm, fold, space jump on my command. Calculating now, the navigator said. We need a stable reference point. The Uit cloud is too sparse. Use the gas giant's core, Jessa said. It's dense enough to anchor a jump, but the math is brutal. Do it, Vance said. The Resolute's fold space drive hummed, its energy signature spiking. The ship's hull began to shimmer as spacetime bent around it. The Dominion cruiser emerged from the nuclear curtain, its weapons already charging. But it was too late, jumping, Vance said. The stars stretched, twisted, and vanished. The Resolute was gone. The scream of fold space decay faded as the Resolute's hull stopped vibrating. Red emergency strobes painted the bridge, the smell of burnt insulation sharp in the recycled air. Vance unbuckled his harness, knuckles white around the edge of the command console, and barked, report. Jump was off target, Navigator Reyes called, his fingers flying across his panel. We're in low-Kalen IV orbit, not the Uit cloud. Radiation levels are 1200 rems an hour. Our hull plating holds for 6 hours before systemic failure starts. Dominion cruiser, Jessa asked, leaning over the tactical display. No short-range signature. Their long-range sweep is locked on the Uit cloud debris field we left. They think we jumped deep into the fringe. We've got a window, but it's not infinite. Jessa zoomed the main view screen on the planet below. The southern continent glowed dull red, 80% of its crust molten from sustained orbital bombardment. Colony infrastructure is gone. Atmospheric scrubbers on all surface domes are offline. I'm picking up 12,000 life signs huddled in the northern polar shelters, but their power reserves are at 14%. They've got 72 hours before life support fails. Captain, comms officer Diaz cut in, her voice tight. Multiple fold signatures, 0.2 light-years out. 3 contacts, human IFF. 3rd Fleet Dreadnought Division, CNS Thunderhead leads the group. Vance's jaw tightened. The distress beacon they'd launched 12 hours prior, right as the Dominion cruiser had disabled their comms array, had made it through. Patched them through. Priority Alpha, the viewscreen flickered, replaced by the face of Rear Admiral Alara Voss, her gray hair pulled back in a tight bun, the bridge of the Thunderhead visible behind her. Resolute, this is Voss. We picked up your beacon and the Dominion's warp signature 40 minutes out from the system jump point. We pushed full burn as soon as we got your last transmission. Situation, Jessa stepped forward, running through the numbers fast. Dominion heavy cruiser is holding position in the outer system, scanning the Uit cloud for our wreckage. It's conducting incremental bombardment of the southern hemisphere, targeting any remaining surface infrastructure. 12,000 civilians in polar shelters, 72 hours of power left. They haven't detected your fleet yet. Voss nodded, her expression unchanged. We'll be in system in 45 minutes. You stay dark, keep your sensors locked on the cruiser. We'll handle the capital ship. Get me landing zone coordinates for the 7th Marine Expeditionary Unit. We're dropping them to secure the shelters and extract the civilians. Resolute, you're our forward observer. Your sensors are calibrated for Dominion emission signatures. You'll vector our strike craft during the engagement. The channel cut, and before Vance could respond, H-Su's alarm blared. Captain. Dominion strike fighters, 12 of them launching from the cruiser's hangar bay, vectoring for the polar shelters. ETA to target 19 minutes. Our missile bays are empty. Point defense cannons can take down maybe 4 before they reach the shelters. Vance didn't hesitate. Jessa, patch Voss, tell her the fighters are inbound. Ask if she can divert the escort frigate USS Ardent to intercept. Helm, bring us around between the fighters and the shelters. We'll use the Resolute as a shield if we have to. Comms, broadcast a warning to Shelter Command. Tell them to seal blast doors, activate electronic countermeasures. Weapons, power up point defense, target the lead flight. H-Su's fingers flew across his console, locking onto the first wave of Dominion strike craft. Lead fighters have acquired us, Captain. They're firing. The Resolute shuddered as a plasma round grazed the port shield. Vance leaned into his mic, his voice steady as the rest of the bridge scrambled to respond. Return fire, all batteries. The Resolute bucked again, a second plasma round hammering the starboard shield. The bridge lights flickered. Vance's eyes stayed locked on the tactical plot, where 12 crimson dots were splitting into two flights of 6, one angling high to bypass his point defense envelope. "They're trying to split our fire," HSU said, his voice tight. "Lead flight is decoying. The second flight is arcing wide, going for the polar approach vector." "I see it," Vance replied. "Weapons, ignore the decoys. Concentrate all point defense on the second flight. Helm 20-degree port yaw, increase lateral thrust. We're going to slide into their path." The helmsman acknowledged, and the Resolute groaned as it pivoted, the ship's mass shifting against its own inertia. Vance felt the vibration through the deck plates. He'd been on ships that had taken direct hits to the hull, had felt the scream of tearing metal. This was different. This was the ship straining to be somewhere it wasn't designed to be, a destroyer playing bodyguard for a civilian shelter. "They've adjusted course," HSU reported. "Second flight is splitting again. 3 are maintaining polar approach. 3 are dropping low, going for the subsurface shelters near the equatorial belt." "They're spreading the threat," Vance muttered. "They know we're one ship." He tapped his comm. "Comms, get me the Ardent, priority channel." A moment of static, then a crisp voice. "Ardent actual, go ahead, Resolute." "Ardent, we have 6 strike craft inbound on civilian shelters. I'm engaging the polar flight, but I can't cover both axes." "Can you intercept the equatorial group?" A pause. "Resolute, we are currently engaging 2 Dominion corvettes that broke from the capital ship's escort screen. We are unable to detach. Recommend you prioritize." Vance's jaw tightened. "Prioritize. Choose which civilians to save." He killed the channel. "Jessa," he said, his voice flat. "Get me the shelter command, all of them, polar and equatorial." The comm officer nodded, her hands moving across her console. "All channels open, Captain." "Shelter command, this is Captain Vance of the ASF Resolute. Dominion fighters are inbound. You have approximately 14 minutes. I am going to engage the flight targeting the polar shelters. I cannot cover the equatorial zone. You need to get your people into the deepest hardened bunkers you have. Seal everything. Kill all external power. Make yourself as quiet as a rock. Do you copy?" A woman's voice came back, shaking but controlled. "Copy, Resolute. We're moving now. Godspeed." Vance switched channels. "Weapons, I want a firing solution on the polar flight. 3 targets. When I give the order, you fire everything we have left. Do not conserve ammunition. I want them dead or running." "Aye, Captain. All batteries locked, waiting on your mark." The tactical plot showed the 3 polar fighters closing. They were fast, sleek Dominion craft built for speed and precision strikes. They'd be launching plasma torpedoes the moment they hit optimal range. The Resolute had maybe 2 minutes before they did. "Helm, bring us to a full stop, broadside the target vector." "Full stop." Aye, the engines died. The Resolute hung in the void, a stationary shield between the fighters and the planet below. "They're locking us," HSU said. "Torpedo launch in 30 seconds. Vance watched the plot. The 3 fighters were in a tight V formation, their weapons systems glowing hot on the sensor feed. They were confident. They were attacking a single, damaged human destroyer with no missiles left. They didn't know humans. "Weapons, fire." The Resolute's point defense cannons roared. A stream of tungsten projectiles and proximity-fused fragmentation shells tore into the night. The lead fighter tried to jink, but the sheer volume of fire was a wall. The first round caught its port wing, shearing it off. The craft spun out of control and vanished into the dark. The second fighter took a direct hit to the cockpit, its pilot erased in a flash of vaporized metal and flesh. The third broke formation, pulling a hard turn to starboard. "One disengaging," HSU reported. "He's running." "Let him," Vance said. "Comms, get me the equatorial shelter. Status." The comm officer shook her head. "No response, Captain. They've gone dark. They're in lockdown." Vance stared at the plot. The 3 equatorial fighters were still closing. He had no weapons left that could reach them in time. He had no ships to divert. He had nothing. He opened a channel to the entire fleet, his voice carrying no emotion, only the cold calculus of command. "All units, this is Captain Vance on the Resolute. The equatorial civilian shelters are about to be hit. I have no assets to intercept. If anyone has a solution, now is the time." Silence, then a single word from the Ardent. "Negative." Vance closed his eyes for half a second. Then he opened them and watched the 3 red dots merge with the blue marker of the equatorial shelter complex. The explosion bloomed on the surface below, a brief, terrible flower of fire and debris. The sensors registered a massive energy release, then nothing. The shelter was gone. Vance didn't look away from the plot. "Log it," he said quietly. "Time, date, number of casualties estimated. We'll have a full accounting later. Right now, we still have a job to do." "Helm, resume course for the polar shelters. We have survivors to extract." The bridge's ambient hum died for 3 full seconds after the equatorial shelter's energy signature vanished from the sensor plot. No one spoke. No one moved. The only sound was the soft, insistent chime of Petty Officer First Class Mara Solis' sensor console as it ran damage assessments on the debris field spreading across the planet's equatorial band. "Sensor returns on the shelter wreckage," Solis said, her voice tight but steady, no tremor. 12 escape pods, civilian evacuee signature match. 3 have hull breaches, life support failing. Drift time into the upper atmosphere, 7 minutes. Lieutenant Ray's tactical officer, cursed under his breath, so quiet only the two of them could hear. The 3 Kalen strike craft that took out the shelter are breaking formation, vectoring for the escape pods. New contacts, warp signatures, 5.2 clicks out, bearing 212. Kalen Raider Wing, 6 light attack craft, same profile as the outer system perimeter group. They're locked on the polar shelter complex. Before Vance could respond, H-Su's voice cut through the squadron comms, sharp and strained, the background whine of his fighters' running systems audible under the transmission. Resolute Actual, Strike Leader HSU. My element is intact, fuel and ordnance for 10 minutes of combat. I can intercept the Raider Wing, but I can't reach the escape pods before the Kalens do. A burst of static, then a familiar gruff voice cracked at the edges. Resolute, this is Black 2 Jensen. I broke formation earlier to avoid a debris collision. Port thrusters shot, but weapons are hot. I'm tucked in the shelter wreckage, have a hard lock on all 3 Kalen fighters. I can take them, but I need you to divert the polar extraction shuttle to the escape pod coordinates. I can carry 2 evacuees in my cockpit max, but I can hold the Kalens off until the shuttle gets there. 8 on that shuttle. Vance didn't hesitate. He turned to the comms officer, his voice flat, no inflection, all command. Vector the extraction shuttle, priority override, divert from current course to the escape pod grid. Report ETA. 12 minutes, Captain. The Kalen fighters will be on the pods in 4. Vance keyed his comms to Jensen's frequency. Black 2, Resolute Actual, you have authority to engage. Shuttle will be on station in 12 minutes. Hold the line. Copy that, Captain. Engaging. He turned back to Ray's. Point defense, power up all batteries. Prioritize any Kalen craft that break through H-Su's intercept. Helm, adjust course 10 degrees port. Keep us on track for the polar shelters. Engineering, prep drop ships for deployment once we're in range. The first Kalen fighter opened fire on the escape pods 90 seconds later. 2 of the damaged pods took direct hits, venting atmosphere, their life support signatures vanishing from the plot. Jensen's voice came back over the comms, tight with adrenaline. 2 pods gone, taking out the lead Kalen now. A sharp burst of static then, lead is splashed, 2 remaining, they're targeting my cockpit. Shuttle is 8 minutes out. The Kalen Raider Wing dropped out of warp 30 seconds later, their weapon systems charging as they bore down on the polar shelter complex. H-Su's 4-fighter element met them head-on, missile trails arcing across the void. H-Su's wingman took a hit to his port wing, spinning off in a tumbling fireball, but H-Su's salvo took out 2 raiders clean. The remaining 4 broke formation, 2 heading for the Resolute, 2 streaking for the polar shelters. The Resolute's point defense batteries opened up, tracers stitching across the black. 1 raider slammed into the forward armor, the impact jolting the entire bridge, alarms blaring. Forward armor breach, deck 4, the damage control officer reported immediately. No casualties, minor system damage, point defense is accounting for the second raider. The comms officer looked up, surprised. Captain Ardent is hailing us, priority urgent. Vance keyed the channel. Vance go, Commander Rourke's voice gruff, no preamble, no apology for his earlier refusal to assist. My TAC officer picked up your pilot holding off 3 Kalens over the shelter debris. I'm diverting 2 of my escort corvettes to cover the escape pods. My point defense is engaging the Raider Wing that broke through your intercept. Don't mistake this for cooperation, Vance. I'm not letting 12 civilians die for your stubbornness. Vance's jaw tightened just a fraction. Acknowledged, Ardent. Corvettes are clear to engage, Resolute Actual out. He turned back to the plot just as Jensen's voice came through, relieved. Kalen fighters are down. Shuttle is on station, picking up the remaining 3 pods, all evacuees accounted for. Solis looked up, her brow furrowed. Captain, the Kalen Raider Wing that was heading for the polar shelters just turned tail. They're bugging out, likely picked up the Ardent's corvettes on their scopes. Vance stared at the plot for a full 2 seconds, the red dots of the retreating Kalens fading from the display. He tapped the console to log the equatorial shelter casualty count. 4,217 confirmed dead, 12 escape pods recovered, 3 lost. He didn't allow himself to dwell on the number. He looked up at the helm, his voice as cold and steady as it had been 10 minutes prior, before the shelter was destroyed. Resume course for the polar shelters. All hands prepare for dropship deployment. We have survivors to extract. The Resolute's deck plates thrummed as the main drive spooled back to full thrust. The lurch so slight only bridge crew with a decade or more of deep space service felt it. Solis' fingers were already flying across her tactical console, pulling up polar sensor sweeps before Vance finished speaking, her brow furrowed as red contact blips popped up one after another. 3 Kalen heavy cruisers, dormant emissions masked, she called, her voice tight. sitting zero point 2 AU outside the polar ice cap, right over the shelter complex. Their running active ECM won't show up on passive scans until we're within 10,000 clicks. That equatorial retreat wasn't a rout, it was a feint. Vance leaned over her shoulder, his jaw set, no wasted words. The polar shelter population flashed on the plot alongside the cruiser contacts. 27,412 civilians, 82% under 18, huddled in sub-ice caves with no heavy shielding against orbital bombardment. The 4,217 dead from the equatorial shelters felt like a punch to the gut he refused to show. The comms crackled before he could respond, Commander Rourke's voice stripped of its usual gruff edge, sharp with urgency. Resolute, actual, ardent here. My long-range sensors just picked up those same cruisers. They've got kinetic bombardment rods pre-targeted on the polar shelters. If we engage them before their weapons are online, those rods will fire automatically. We need to disable their command and control first, not blow them apart. Acknowledged, Vance said, already tapping his console to pull up the Resolute's fighter wing status. Your corvettes can handle their flank once we take out their forward batteries. What's your disposition? 2 corvettes are already maneuvering to their starboard side, but my Dreadnought can't break formation to support without abandoning the Equatorial Survivor shuttle and the 12 escape pods we just recovered. You're on point for the polar approach. Jensen stepped up to the tactical station, his flight suit's left sleeve burned off at the shoulder, a bandage peeking through where a Kalen fighter's plasma bolt had grazed him 10 minutes prior. My fighter's still flight-worthy, Captain. I can lead Strike Wing 2 through their ECM bubble, take out their sensor arrays and comms first. Give you a 45-second window to disable their weapons before they can fire the rods. Vance held his gaze for half a second, no hesitation. Approved, take 2 wingmates, hit their comms and sensor nodes first, then disengage. Do not engage their cruisers head-on, we'll handle the heavy lifting. Copy that. Resolute, launching in 10. Solis' voice cut in, sharp as a knife. Kalen cruisers are powering up weapons. They spotted the fighter launch, firing solution locking in 90 seconds. Their point defense is spinning up too. Vance barked orders before she finished speaking. Helm, hard turn to port, bring our port plasma batteries to bear. Divert 60% main power to point defense, 40% to forward batteries. Ardent, be advised, we're engaging in 60 seconds. Your corvettes need to hit their starboard flank now, or we lose 27,000 civilians and every one of our drop ships. The Resolute's hull groaned as the thrusters fired, the ship pivoting smoothly toward the hidden Kalen cruisers. Jensen's voice came over the comms a minute later, strained from the high-G maneuver, static crackling through the transmission. Resolute, strike leader here. Sensor arrays on lead cruiser down, comms on second cruiser disabled. Their forward batteries are offline for 45 seconds. Hit them now before they cycle backup power. Fire all forward batteries, Vance ordered, his voice steady as the Resolute's weapons bays opened. Target weapon mounts only. Do not destroy their command decks. We need to stop those rods from firing, not trigger them. Plasma bolts streaked across the black void, bright as miniature suns, slamming into the Kalen cruiser's forward weapon arrays. One cruiser erupted in a silent flash of fire as its ammunition magazines detonated, the other 2 listing heavily, their portside batteries disabled entirely. Rourke's corvette swept in from the starboard flank, their smaller plasma cannons carving through the third cruiser's engine mounts, sending it drifting dead in space. Cruisers disabled, Solis called, her voice relieved but still tight. No rod launches detected. Dropships are clear to launch. Vance nodded, tapping his console to relay the order. All drop ships launch in 30 seconds. Target the polar ice cave entrances. Pick up every civilian. No one gets left behind. Resume course for the Ardent's rally point once evac is complete. On the plot, the red Kalen contact blips faded to gray as their crews abandoned ship, the blue dots of the Resolute's drop ships peeling off toward the polar ice cap. The young comms ensign at the station beside him let out a quiet breath she didn't know she was holding, tapping her console to confirm the launch order. Vance didn't comment, but the tension in his shoulders relaxed a fraction, just enough for the crew to see they won this round, even if the war was far from over. The Resolute's bridge thrummed with the low, steady hum of fusion reactors, the only sounds the sharp chime of long-range sensors and the quiet tap of consoles as the crew logged the destruction of the 3 Kalen cruisers. 12 minutes post-engagement, Solis' head snapped up from her tactical station, her voice sharp enough to cut through the background noise. 3 new Kalen contacts, warp signature matches 7th Flotilla destroyers, ETA to weapon range 11 minutes. Vance didn't flinch, his fingers flying across his command console to reroute 20% of the reactor output to the forward point defense batteries. Rourke, adjust your corvette screen to intercept formation. Keep them outside 70,000 clicks, don't let them get a lock on the dropship corridor. Rourke's response crackled over the comms, rough and unpolished as ever. I will dance with them. Give your birds time to pull the civvies out. 30 seconds later, Lieutenant Mara Jax's Valkyrie-class dropship, callsign Widowmaker 7, dropped below the Resolute's hull, engines roaring as it burned hard for the polar ice cap's southern fissure. Jax's sensor feed painted the cave entrance in harsh green. Kalen infantry dug into the ice ridge above the gap, plasma repeaters trained on the approach path, a half-buried escape skiff cratered by Kalen rounds beside the entrance, 6 civilian corpses splayed across the ice, Kalen kill markers burned into their insulated parkas. Jax keyed her comms to the Marine squad leader, Sergeant Kale, her voice flat, no room for error. Suppress on my mark. I'll take the heavy weapon on the ridge with the chin turret. Breach the tunnel, get the civvies out, no stops for body recovery unless it's one of ours. The dropship swooped low over the ice, Kalen plasma bolts streaking past the hull like angry fireflies. Jax squeezed the trigger on the chin-mounted rotary cannon, 20 rounds stitching the ridge, the Kalen heavy weapon operator exploding in a spray of ice and blood. The ramp dropped before the skid even touched the ice, Kale's squad pouring out, smoke grenades popping as they laid down covering fire. They hit the fissure entrance 45 seconds later, breaching the ice seal with shaped charges, flooding the dark tunnel with the dropship's external floodlights. 47 civilians huddled against the ice walls beyond the entrance, mostly families with young kids, their faces gaunt with weeks of hiding from Kalen patrols. 2 Kalen infantry moved to charge the entrance, but Kale's plasma rifle caught both in the chest before they could raise their weapons. The Marines herded the civilians onto the dropship in 90 seconds flat, Jax gunning the engines the second the ramp sealed, pulling away as a Kalen plasma round slammed into the ice where the ramp had been 1.2 seconds prior. Back on the Resolute's bridge, Solis' knuckles were white where she gripped the edge of her tactical station. Crippled Kalen cruiser portside still has partial engineering power. Sensor confirmation, they're aligning the kinetic rod launcher. Target lock on the planet's northern continental shelf, ETA to impact 92 seconds. Vance's jaw tightened. The 12-ton tungsten penetrator, moving at 0.4 C, would punch through 10 miles of crust, trigger the supervolcano buried under the polar ice cap, and kill every living thing within 500 miles of the impact zone, including the 2 million civilians huddled in the underground shelters the dropships were pulling people from. Rays, can you get a firing solution on the rod post-launch? Vance asked, his voice steady, no trace of the ice crawling up his spine. The gunnery chief's response was calm, practiced, the same tone he used for target practice drills. Aye, sir, but main battery cooled on his 15 seconds. Rod will be inside our defensive umbrella in 12. We'll have to take the shot at 180,000 clicks, 7-second window before it's too fast to track. Rourke, can your corvette spare a volley? Vance keyed the fleet comms. A quiet curse came over the line, followed by the sharp ping of plasma impacts on corvette hulls. Negative, the destroyers just launched 12 strike fighters. We're busy picking them off. You're on your own, Vance. Rays, target the rod's guidance fin cluster. Fire on my mark. Mark, Vance counted down under his breath, the bridge crew holding their breath, the only sound the hum of reactors and the distant crump of plasma impacts on the Resolute's forward shields. Fire. The Resolute's forward spinal mount glowed bright blue, a 2-ton plasma slug streaking out across the void, slamming into the rod 180,000 clicks out. The tactical plot flashed white for half a second, then the rod contact vanished, replaced by a spreading cloud of ionized plasma debris. The crew let out a collective quiet breath, no cheers, just the tight relief of a high-stakes shot landing clean. Widowmaker 7's comms chirped a second later, Jax's voice steady as ever. Resolute, Widowmaker 7. Evac complete, 47 civilians aboard, no Marine casualties, en route to docking bay 4. Vance nodded, tapping his console to log the evac success before his gaze snapped back to the tactical plot. The 3 Kalen destroyers were now 8 minutes out, their prow batteries glowing as they charged for a full volley. Rourke's lead corvette took a direct hit to the bridge, the contact blip vanishing from the plot with no distress call. Vance keyed the fleet-wide comms, his voice steady, no trace of the tension coiling in his chest. All hands, condition red, Rourke's screen is engaging, protect the drop ship RTB corridor, divert all non-essential power to forward batteries. Priority message to the Ardent rally point, evac complete, hostile reinforcements inbound, request immediate fleet support, we hold the line. The Resolute's hull vibrated as the first Kalen destroyer volley slammed into the forward shields, the tactical plot lighting up with red contact blips closing in fast. The war wasn't over, not by a long shot. We need to write chapter 11 of 12 for episode 25. The series is the desperate cry of a D-Ying world answered by a thunder of human D-Read, ASF. Previous context, after a successful EV AC and a precision shot destroying a K-AL and rod, 3K ale and destroyers are 8 minutes out. Ararkis Corvette lost bridge, but screen is engaging. Resolute is holding line, requesting fleet support. Chapter 11 should continue the battle, build tension, and lead to climax. Must be 800-100 words, detailed, no CL acutes, crisp military dialogue, macro to micro scale. We need to advance plot, destroyers closing, Resolute under fire, Widow Maker 7 docking. Possibly introduce a new threat or twist. Since it's chapter 11 of 12, likely the turning point or last stand before final chapter, use calm human resourcefulness, avoid repetitive phrases, output only story text. The Resolute's deck plates hummed under Vance's boots as he crossed to the secondary tactical station, the vibration a familiar counterpoint to the low thrum of the reactor cycling power to the forward batteries. On the main plot, the 3 Kalen destroyers had tightened formation, their energy signatures spiking as they pushed to maximum burn. 8 minutes had become 6, the range closing faster than his gunnery officer had predicted. "They're not slowing for a standoff engagement," Lieutenant Chen said from her seat at the sensor suite, her voice flat, clinical. "I'm reading a low-yield radiation bleed from the lead ship's engine cowling. They've got a coolant leak, probably from the last volley we traded. They're pushing hard to close and overwhelm our point defense." Vance didn't answer. He was watching the feed from the docking bay, Widowmaker 7 settling onto its cradle, Jax's voice on the internal comms coordinating the evacuees down the ramp. 47 civilians, no marine casualties. That part was done. Now the hard part, getting the Resolute and the remaining screen out of the system before the Kalen's main fleet responded to the distress call that was surely already propagating at light speed. Comms, any reply from the ardent rally point? Ensign Torres shook his head, fingers dancing over his console. "Negative, sir, we're still inside the local gas giant's magnetosphere interference band. The priority burst went out, but I've got no handshake. They might not have received it yet, or they're already engaged elsewhere." Vance allowed himself a single slow breath. "No cavalry coming. Fine, we do this the old way. Gunnery shift targeting priority to the lead destroyer. I want a full broadside, all forward plasma cannons and both railguns. Fire on my mark." He turned to the helm. "Lieutenant Okonkwo, bring us to a relative zero velocity vector. Bow on to the enemy formation. I want the smallest target profile we can manage. Once we fire, execute a hard retro burn and drop us behind the gas giant's rings. The debris field will give us cover to reload and reposition." Okonkwo's hands moved before he finished speaking, the Resolute's massive drive pushing against its momentum, the ship shuddering as the inertial dampeners compensated. The tactical plot showed the 3 destroyers closing, now 5 minutes out, their prow batteries glowing a sullen orange as they prepared for a full volley. "Enemy firing solution locked," Chen reported. "They're going to salvo before we can complete our burn. Then we fire first." Vance's thumb pressed the comms key. "All batteries fire." The Resolute's forward array lit the void. 2 plasma cannons unleashed lances of superheated hydrogen, each shot a coherent stream of stellar fire that crossed the distance in seconds. The lead destroyer's shields flared, absorbing the first hit, but the second plasma stream punched through the weakened point and carved a glowing trench along the hull. A secondary explosion bloomed from the coolant leak Chen had spotted, the ship's engineering section venting atmosphere and fire. Then the Kalen volley arrived. 3 heavy plasma slugs slammed into the Resolute's forward shield. The first 2 were absorbed, the third overloaded a generator node, and the feedback ripple sent a tremor through the deck. Vance grabbed the edge of the tactical station as alarms screamed. Shield integrity at 68% on the bow, a minor hull breach on Deck 7, compartment sealed, no casualties. Damage control teams to Deck 7, helm execute the burn now. The Resolute's drive flared again, the ship pivoting and accelerating toward the gas giant's rings. On the plot, the 2 remaining Kalen destroyers, the third was drifting, venting plasma, adjusted course to pursue. They were faster, more agile. They'd close before the Resolute could reach the ring debris. Vance opened a channel to the remaining screen, 2 corvettes and a frigate, all that was left of Rourke's squadron. "All units break and engage the enemy on separate vectors. Draw their fire. Do not commit to a stand-up fight, hit and fade. We need 5 minutes. The corvettes acknowledged with clipped replies, their icons splitting away, burning hard to flank the destroyers. The frigate hung back, its missile tubes cycling. On the Resolute's bridge, the silence was thick. Vance watched the timer tick down, 4 minutes to ring cover. The destroyers were 3 minutes out, their guns already tracking the Resolute's new course. "Sir," Chen said, her voice carrying a note of surprise, "I'm picking up a new contact. High orbit, coming around the gas giant's dark side. Energy signature is massive." Vance's jaw tightened. "Reinforcements or the fleet's main battle group. Identify." Chen paused. "It's a human dreadnought, ASF Indomitable. She's broadcasting our fleet IFF, and she's already firing." The tactical plot lit up with a volley of heavy kinetics, the Indomitable's main battery, a dozen railgun rounds traveling at a fraction of light speed, slamming into the lead Kalan destroyer. The alien ship's shields collapsed instantly, the hull crumpling inward as the kinetic energy turned it into a cloud of debris. The second destroyer attempted to brake, but the frigate's missiles found its drive cone, and the Indomitable's secondary batteries finished it. Vance let out a slow breath, his knuckles white on the console. Comms, hail the Indomitable, express our gratitude and request rendezvous coordinates. We've got evacuees to transfer. He didn't smile. The war wasn't over, but for now they had held the line. We need to write Chapter 12 of 12 for Episode 25. The previous context ends with the arrival of the ASF Indomitable destroying the K-Ale and destroyers. The chapter should conclude the episode, likely with the evacuation completed and a sense of resolution but ongoing war. Must follow rules, macro to micro scale, no CLAKs, crisp dialogue, high stakes, 801,000 words, output only story text. The Resolute's bridge exhaled as one. The tactical plot showed nothing but debris and the fading heat signatures of the fleeing Kalan survivors. The Indomitable's massive silhouette filled the sensor feed, a kilometer of matte gray armor, scars from 100 engagements, its railgun barrels still glowing. Commander Vance straightened, his joints protesting. Open a channel to the Indomitable. The main screen flickered to life, revealing a woman with close-cropped gray hair and a face that had seen too many last stands. Captain Alara Vance, his older sister. The familial resemblance was there in the jawline, the cold eyes. You took your time, he said. Afik was hell, her voice was dry, but a ghost of a smile touched her lips. We picked up your distress beacon 3 hours ago, had to burn through a Kalan picket line to get here, lost a destroyer. Vance nodded. We have 3,000 civilians in the cargo bays, life support is marginal, I need a transfer authorization. Already logged, Indomitable's shuttles are launching, ETA 6 minutes. She glanced off-screen at her own tactical feed. The Kalan fleet is pulling back to the outer system. They didn't expect a Dreadnought. That buys us maybe 12 hours before they regroup and bring up their heavy units. 12 hours is enough to get these people to the inner colonies. It's enough to get you to the next fight. She fixed him with a look that brooked no argument. Your XO can handle the evac. I need you on my bridge. We're planning a counterstrike on the Kalan supply depot at Zeta 7. Your experience with their destroyer tactics is valuable. Vance didn't hesitate. Chen, you have the deck. Complete the evacuation, then rendezvous with the fleet at Waypoint Gamma. Understood. Lieutenant Chen swallowed, but her voice was steady. Understood, sir. I won't let them down. He crossed to the airlock, pausing at the hatch. You've already proven that. Keep them alive. The transfer was a blur of shuttles, crying children, and exhausted crew. Vance boarded the Indomitable with a data chip containing every sensor log and tactical assessment from the past 72 hours. The Dreadnought's interior was a cathedral of function, bare metal corridors, crew moving with practiced efficiency, the thrum of reactors deep in the hull. Captain Vance met him on the flag bridge. She handed him a cup of coffee, real, not synth. You look like hell, feel like it. He took a sip. The Kalan are adapting. Their destroyers used a new jamming pattern, disrupted our targeting algorithms for 6 seconds. That's an eternity at combat ranges. She nodded, pulling up a holographic star map. We've seen it. Their supply depot at Zeta 7 is the linchpin. If we take it out, they lose forward logistics for this entire sector. The fleet is massing for a strike in 36 hours. Vance studied the display. They'll expect us to hit it directly. We need a feint, draw their escorts away, then send in a fast attack group through the asteroid belt. That's what I wanted to hear. She tapped a command, and the plan expanded with ship assignments, timing windows, and fallback positions. You'll command the feint force, 3 destroyers, 2 frigates, buy us 20 minutes. He didn't blink. Done. The war wasn't over. The Kalan would return and the human fleet would meet them again. But for now, the Resolute survivors were safe, the Indomitable was reloaded, and the counterstrike was in motion. Vance looked at his sister. We're going to win this. She met his gaze. We're going to make them pay for every system they took. Now finish your coffee. Briefing in 10. The thunder of human dreadnoughts had answered the cry, and the answer was fire.